What if the number 144,000 isn't just symbolic or even literal? What if it's a code, a divine signature that unlocks a hidden message placed by God, one that reveals who the 144,000 really are, why they're marked with God's name, and how their identity is tied to the highest level of spiritual status a human being can attain. Today, we're decoding the true meaning behind 144,000 and the message that's been buried in plain sight for centuries. Let's dive in. To understand the hidden meaning behind 144,000, we need to understand Gematria, a Hebrew interpretive method where every letter has a numerical value. By adding up the letters in words, phrases, or names, ancient Jews believed they could uncover deeper spiritual truth. And surprisingly, this system isn't just theory. It even shows up in the New Testament. For example, in Matthew 1:17, the genealogy of Jesus is divided into 3 sets of 14 generations. Why 14? Because the name David in Hebrew adds up to 14. Matthew is making a powerful point that Jesus is the long-awaited Son of David. The number 14 is not random. It's theologically loaded. And in Revelation 13, we're told that the number of the beast is 666, and it can be calculated. Many scholars believe this refers to Nero Caesar, whose name in Hebrew adds up to 666. So, the biblical authors were using Gematria to encode messages, both divine and demonic. In ancient Jewish thought, square numbers were considered good and holy. Triangular numbers like 666 represented disorder and evil. This is key. Revelation 13 ends with 666, the number of the beast. But the very next scene, Revelation 14, introduces the 144,000, God's sealed remnant. These two numbers are being intentionally contrasted. 666 symbolizes a man who has descended to the level of a beast, but 144,000 is a square number representing divine completeness and holiness. It is the elevation of humanity to something higher. Now, here's where it gets shocking. Revelation 21:17 says, "The angel measured the wall of the New Jerusalem, and it was 144 cubits by human measurement, which is also an angel's measurement." That's the opposite of what happened with the beast, where 666 dehumanizes man into a beast. 144 transforms human measurement into angelic measurement. So this tells us something profound. The 144,000 are being lifted up to angelic status. In fact, when you transliterate the Greek word into Hebrew and calculate its gematria, it equals 144. So we're not just seeing a random number. We're seeing a divine fingerprint. The number 144 is tied to angelic identity. This doesn't mean that the 144,000 become literal angels, but it does mean they're raised to function like angels, God's messengers, his representatives, his sealed priests on the earth. So here's a question. Why would God use a number to describe people instead of just using a name? Let me know what you think in the comments. In Revelation 14, the 144,000 have God's name written on their foreheads. This isn't just poetic. In ancient Israel, the high priest wore a gold plate across his forehead that said, "Holy to the Lord." This was a priestly mark, literally a nameplate, signifying that the priest bore God's name and stood in his presence. Now think about that. The 144,000 are marked in the same way, not with the mark of the beast, but with the name of God written on their heads. This is a priestly identity, a sacred commission. They are a remnant of humans who function as royal priests, standing in the most holy place of end-time history. In Jewish tradition, holiness isn't just about purity. It's also about proximity. So the holier you are, the closer you are to God. And Moses was said to reach the highest level of holiness a human could attain. So much so that he was described as being like an angel. Deuteronomy 34:10 says, "No prophet has arisen like Moses, who the Lord knew face to face." Jewish scholars believe Moses, through obedience and intimacy, transcended the normal human experience. And that's exactly the pattern the 144,000 follow. They aren't just rule followers. They are God's friends, his priests, his messengers, his ambassadors. But why do these numbers matter so much to God? Because in ancient Israel, time itself was understood numerically. 12 hours in a day, 30 days in a lunar month, 50 days from Passover to Pentecost, 7-year Sabbath for the land. According to scholars, even prophetic time was overlaid with common time. Jeremiah's 70 years of exile matched 70 violations of the Sabbath year cycle. Numbers were a divine accounting system. That's why 144,000 isn't just a head count. It's a prophetic signature, God's stamp of divine order, fulfillment, and holiness. So what is the hidden message behind 144,000? It's not just about who God protects. It's about who he elevates. A priestly remnant, a transformed people, humans raised to an angelic calling. And if you're sealed by his spirit and bear his name, then maybe that number isn't just about someone else. If this video opened your eyes, don't stop here. There's so much more. We'll go deeper into the hidden identity that the 144,000 have that's tied to angels. Watch that video next, and I'll see you there.